You know Al Capone, right? The infamous gangster who basically ran Chicago in the roaring 20s with his bootlegging, racketeering, and generally being public enemy number one. Well, let me tell you about the crazy twist his life took when he ended up at the one and only Alcatraz Federal Penitentiary. Can you even imagine Scarface Al, the big shot mobster, trading in his custom suits and massive criminal empire for a tiny prison cell and a pair of regulation inmate coveralls? It's almost too wild to picture. But that's exactly what went down in 1934 when Capone's felonious vacation came to an end. After getting nabbed for tax evasion of all things, Capone was shipped out to the brand new super maximum security prison on Alcatraz Island in San Francisco Bay. No more living the high life for him. This place was designed from the ground up to be brutal and unbearable for even the toughest of criminals. Instead of a palatial mansion, Capone's new digs were a cramped 9'5" cell. Can you imagine having to squeeze his massive ego into a space that tiny? No more fancy home-cooked meals or phone calls to his underworld pals either. It was prison food slop and strict lockdown 24/7 for the former kingpin. But you know what? From all accounts, Capone actually took his new situation pretty well, all things considered. He was plunked right into the general population and made to do tedious prison chores like mopping floors and working laundry detail just like every other inmate. No special celebrity treatment for Scarface on the Rock. Now, Capone being Capone, he did get into a couple of scrapes while locked up there. One time, a guy went after him with a scissors blade in the shower, and Capone had to grab his mandola, you know, that little pear-shaped stringed instrument, and use it to clock the guy over the head. He may have been model prisoner on the surface, but you didn't want to make Al mad. And get this, in between his chores and occasional prison yard beatdowns, Capone actually became quite the little Renaissance man. Can you picture the big lug sweeping floors one minute and then settling down with some classic novels or poetry the next? It's too good. Apparently, Capone was a huge reader while in the slammer. He'd check out all kinds of books on music, gardening, self-improvement, you name it. The guy who dropped out of school in 7th grade was making up for lost time. One book he was really into was called Life Begins at 40, about making the most of your later years. From gangster to golden ager in one prison stint. Speaking of music, that was one of Capone's biggest hobbies on Alcatraz. Despite never playing an instrument before, he took up the banjo and even formed a prison band. Just picture Scarface plucking away at a little banjo, probably with a cigar clenched between his teeth. Too good. He got so into it that he eventually switched to the mandola and claimed he could play over 500 songs, everything from show tunes to an original love song he wrote for his wife May called Madonna Mia. Alcatraz's very own inmate American Idol. Of course, it wasn't all music and books for Capone. Towards the end of his stint, which lasted over 4 years, he started showing signs of full-blown syphilitic dementia from never getting that STD treated. You'd find him lucid one minute, then raving like a lunatic the next. The prison docs tried giving him malaria on purpose at one point, if you can believe that, hoping to cure the syphilis by raising his temperature to insane levels. Sadly, it was too little too late for poor Al's frying brain. So in a way, you could say Alcatraz represented the twilight years and sad decline of the once powerful and feared Capone, from untouchable kingpin to prison renaissance-man to feeble and forgotten at the very end. Just goes to show that life doesn't always go the way you plan, even for the big shots. Whether he was truly rehabilitated during his stay on the Rock or just biding his time is up for debate. But one thing's for sure, the story of Al Capone doing a complete 180 from brutal mobster to well-read prison musician is one I'll never forget. Makes you wonder what other hidden talents he might have unveiled if not for that nasty parting gift from the syphilis. Alcatraz has got plenty of wild tales, but Capone's has got to be one of the most fascinating of the bunch.